Bronco Nation just unveiled a video with the Bronco Raptor tearing it up in the dirt. We're going to look at that. We're going to see what is confirmed, what we still don't know. We're also going to look at the possibility of a V8 Bronco. So just that you know, Bronco Nation is a marketing company that is affiliated with Ford. They're not actually part of Ford, but they do sort of put out official Ford communications. So everything that's on Bronco Nation you can expect to be vetted by Ford and kind of official. That said, let's take a look. This looks and sounds absolutely amazing, and it doesn't sound like the regular Bronco at all. I just had one. I'm still editing the review. So the engine is very likely to be the 3-liter engine that is currently used in a number of different Ford products. This is the 3-liter EcoBoost engine, and it's used currently in the Ford Explorer, the Ford Explorer ST, the Lincoln Aviator, and it makes a bunch of different power ratings depending on the configuration, and it also comes with a plug-in hybrid. So in the plug-in hybrid version, makes up to 494 horsepower and 630 pound-feet of torque. Do I think this is a hybrid? No, I actually don't. That's going to add a lot of weight. It doesn't seem to be a battery pack underneath it. We can take a look underneath it in just a second. So I think this is going to be a fairly standard 3-liter. And so we can see in the Ford Explorer ST, it's making about 400 horsepower, 415 pound-feet of torque. Now, I think it's going to have to make a little bit more of that for it to really be a Raptor version. And that's because the 2.7-liter EcoBoost that is currently in the Bronco makes 315 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. So this Raptor version is going to have to make a lot more torque, I think, in order for it really to be sold as a Raptor. And this thing is going to be expensive. Now, they put it right next to the Outer Banks version, and this thing is absolutely huge. I've queried Ford on the exact ground clearance of the Outer Banks, and they didn't have a specific answer for me. I know everyone at Ford is super busy. Please get back to me, but I'm guessing it's about 9.2 inches, something like that, with the 18-inch tires. Go ahead, flame me if I'm wrong, but that is what I believe it to be. So, but just looking at the Raptor version over here on the right-hand side, this thing looks so much more massive, and some of the things that you can see really looking at it side by side is obviously the increased ground clearance. This is a heck of a lot taller. It's also got some much beefier front lower control arms. We're going to look at that in a second too. And also visually on the grille, we can see that it has this massive Ford logo instead of the Bronco logo. So that's kind of a cool thing to see. And we can see also that it is a heck of a lot taller. We just mentioned that. So it's clearly riding on much bigger tires. What is also really noticeable are these massive fender flares. This is going to be a lot wider than the regular Bronco. So this is a much bigger vehicle. This is not going to be the vehicle that you want to take on super tight, super narrow trails up in the mountains, probably. This seems to be more of a desert runner type of vehicle. At least that's my impression with all this additional power in it. And that's just my take on it. Now, 75% of you that watch my videos are actually not subscribed. I cover Ford, I cover Jeep, I cover the Japanese brands, I do reviews, and I do news. So hey, join the family. It's absolutely free. Here's another side-by-side comparison with it. We can see these massive fender flares. Once again, they are definitely quite a bit bigger, and they seem to be mounted a little bit higher up on the fender as well. So you can look over here, you can see where the fender mounting height is compared to the, when you go from the top of the fender down to the top of the fender flare, seems to be quite a bit less height than you get over here on the standard Bronco. So it's not just that the flares are bigger, it's that they actually seem to have a different mounting location. Now, we don't know if it's going to come in a 2-door version. I think the 4-door is all but confirmed. We're looking at the 4-door right here. I love the 2-door. I think it looks super cool. I'm not entirely sure that we are going to get a 2-door version of the Raptor. We know that the 4-door just sells a whole lot better, and I think that's going to be sort of a safer choice for Ford. I would love to see a 2-door version. Again, don't know if it's coming. We can also see visually this has got much, much bigger, beefier tires on it than the standard Outer Banks Raptor. In fact, let's look at the specs that we know what we have right now. We are going to get 37-inch tires. These are pretty massive. 37 by 12.5 on a 17-inch wheel, and they're going to have the BFG KO2 tires. And it's also going to have a reinforced steering rack. We'll take a look at that in a second too. We've got exaggerated wheel lip moldings, which we just saw, and often copied amber lights. And there's a reason why it has amber lights. That's because it's over 80 inches wide, and it's got beefier lower control arms. And that is one thing that separates this Raptor version from the lesser Broncos. Now, the regular Bronco is actually quite big compared to a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Bronco is around 2 inches longer and about 5 inches wider than the Rubicon already, so it's a pretty big vehicle, and it did fit in my garage, although it was a little bit tight. We know this thing is going to be super wide, so the Wild Track version is 79.3 inches wide. And for just a completely ridiculous example, the Ferrari F8 is 77.9 inches wide. So looking at this thing, we've clearly got a lot bigger fender flares than we do on the regular Bronco. And they mentioned the 3 LED lights. That's because it is over 80 inches wide. You need to have these 3 LEDs, which you see right up front here in the front of the grille. Don't know if you can see that, because there is a federal regulation that says any vehicle over 80 inches wide needs to have these 3 LEDs. So considering that the Wild Track is 79.3 inches wide, I'm going to guess, let's take a look here, that the Raptor is probably in the range of 83 to 85 inches, because looking at this here, looking at this comparison, looking side by side, I think these fender flares are probably, the total width of the vehicle is probably 4 to 5 inches wider than the regular Bronco. Let me know your thoughts. I'm just guesstimating here. So this is going to be a very big, very beefy, large vehicle. Let me know if you like the look of this Raptor version. I'm pretty much digging it. Looking underneath it, there's definitely a lot that we can learn here. We have an upgraded exhaust, so we have dual tips. And what no one seems to have been talking about so far is that there is a third pipe down here. You can kind of see this. Let me zoom in a little bit. See this pipe down here? I think we have a valved exhaust with this. I think we're going to have a couple of different modes like we have in the F-150 Raptor. So that's pretty cool. Pretty big exhaust, and also one of the things that you can see, this whole thing is kind of tucked up really high close to the body for better ground clearance. So that's a pretty important thing that Ford has done. So in the Generation 3 Ford F-150 Raptor, we've got quiet, normal, sport, and Baja mode. And I'm guessing we have something like that here too. And Baja mode sounds absolutely ridiculous on the regular Raptor. So I think we're going to get something like that here too. There's a few other things that we can learn here too. So looking at the rear of the differential, it has this R for Raptor, which is pretty cool. It's obviously not powder coated. It's not black. It is in just straight up aluminum. And we can also see a drain plug here too, which is kind of nice, or rather a fill plug, excuse me. So there's going to be a drain plug hopefully in the back here too. So that should make it fairly easy to service. I think that's really important for a vehicle like this. Also, the trailing arms, over here and over here, these seem to be tucked up a little bit more into the body too, which is actually good because that's going to give us a little bit more ground clearance. So I think that's another thing that they have addressed also with this that is going to be a little bit different than the regular Bronco. Here's yet another version of the exhaust system, and again you can see it's not super prominent, which is kind of nice. You will be able to see it from the back, but it is tucked up in there. So looking over here on the driver's side, on the left-hand side, we can see the coils, and I think we're going to get some Fox shocks, also like we get in the F-150. If you sort of want to figure out what's likely to be in the Bronco Raptor, I think if you look in the F-150 Raptor, you're going to see a lot of similarities, and it makes sense for Ford to carry over some of those components because they're tested, tried, and true, and Ford knows that they work well in an off-road environment, kind of the high-speed desert runner, which I think is the way this is going to be positioned. So here we're getting a closer look at the strut configuration. Looks like sort of a coil-over type setup. Now, I think we got an off-board fluid reservoir here, and Fox is known for doing this using an off-board reservoir. It's a more high-performance system. It allows you to have more fluid in the shock. These are very likely to be adaptive shocks too, and they're able to respond to changes in the terrain very quickly, and they can move fluid from inside the reservoir to outside the reservoir. So it sort of gives them more options, more configurability, and I think that's what this is. And if you're the kind of person that is looking at a Bronco, you probably like to work in your own vehicles. And so today's sponsor is Lexivon wrenches. They make really nice high quality wrenches. I've used them quite a bit. Got a nice positive click, and they're actually not very expensive. I like using these because, well, first I like the black powder coating, but they're also pretty inexpensive. You can find these on Amazon. I'm going to have a link down below. and I get a small commission if you click on that link. They've got a whole number of sizes. They've got some sockets also. They've got some adapters and extensions, and just a really great torque wrench. And again, I want to thank Lexivon for sponsoring this video. And if you like to work in your own car, definitely go check them out. Thanks for supporting them. Remember all that speculation over the name Warthog? In fact, I think I broke that story. I had a source who told me that Warthog was going to be the name of this Bronco. Instead of being called the Raptor, it was going to be called the Bronco Warthog. Well, I think Ford actually pulled one over our eyes. They actually did a trademark filing on the name Warthog, and here I did a screen capture in this video. So you can see the name Warthog DR1. So clearly Ford made the decision either to not call it the Warthog and go with the Raptor name, because that is one thing that would be common across the Ford theme, the Ford universe, to call it the Raptor like the F-150. This also could be just a little tease, a little nod to that little marketing move that they did. And it also could possibly be a package, some type of package that we would get with this, perhaps an upgraded option. Don't really know. Let me know your thoughts down below. So what kind of versions of the Raptor are going to be available? So over here at Ford Authority, apparently they have confirmed that there's going to be at least 2 different levels, 2 different trim packages, I guess you could call it. So according to the Ford Motor Company ordering system, the 2022 Ford Raptor, the Bronco Raptor, will be available in at least 2 different versions, a base version and a higher version that includes the Lux package. So the Lux package you can currently get, and that gives you adaptive cruise control, the 10-speaker B&O sound system, which actually sounds pretty good, heated steering wheel, which I liked, wireless charging pad, and the other details are apparently unclear. But we do know that we're going to be able to get code orange, at least appears that is going to be one of the colors that we're going to be able to get with that too. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of controversy over a possible V8 version of the Bronco. And why didn't Ford bring the V8? There's a lot of people saying, I'm never going to order the thing unless it comes with a V8. Well, get in line, because you're going to be at the back of the line. They have about 200,000 orders right now. But Ford did produce something called the Bronco DR, and I want to talk about that for a second. And let's talk about this V8 and kind of see what is possible with the V8 and what is probably not possible. We're going to have to enter the speculative zone for that for just a second. So Ford is producing the Bronco DR. That stands for Desert Racer. This is going to be a limited edition production desert racer designed to take on the Baja 1000 with V8 power. Now the thing that you need to know with this is not an on-road approved truck. This is not something you can license and go to the DMV and license this and put it on the road and put plates on it. This is for off-road only. This is not going to be a vehicle that you can buy and drive it around your neighborhood, at least legally. So even though this is a production Bronco, it's going to be 4 doors, and it's going to have unique body and chassis modifications for high-speed desert racing, and the Coyote 5-liter V8 engine targeting more than 400 horsepower. We know in the Mustang it makes 460, or actually 450 now for 2022. And this is also going to have Multimatic positional sensitive DSSV dampers and a safety cage, so sort of an adaptive suspension type setup. And here's the thing. It's an initial run of only 50 vehicles, and it's going to be available late in 2022. And of course, this is going to be for the Baja 1000. That's what they're targeting this vehicle for people that want to go racing. And the price is $200,000 above, mid $200,000 range. So figure out it's going to be something like $250,000. This is actually not going to be built by Ford. This is going to be built by a company called Multimatic. So these are hand-built Broncos. If you want to put your money down on it, you can actually go to multimaticmotorsports.com and you can inquire about this vehicle if you want to get one. So here's the 5-liter engine that has been shoehorned into the front end of the Bronco in the engine bay. We can see that there are some bracing, some support bars here that tie, looks like one fender or one side of the engine bay to the other for additional support. And it's a little bit difficult to see exactly what's going on here, but you can see this is really mashed right up close to the front and also the sides. So it does fit, but this engine is, again, this is not something that is street legal, so we don't know exactly what is missing from the engine. It may not have all the emission controls that a street legal version needs to have, and also it's a little bit difficult to see it here, but remember, on a street legal vehicle you need to have things like safety systems. So you need to have the crumple zones that work properly. The front of the vehicle is going to crush a little bit and is going to provide that crumple zone so that it's going to absorb the impact in the case of an accident. And a whole host of other engineering things that need to be included too to meet different regulations and different requirements. And remember, this is only going to be handmade. There's going to be 50 of them made. Ford is probably not going to be able to put a V8 into the regular Bronco and meet all the requirements that they would need to. That would be very expensive if they did. Anyways, I'm not trying, I don't work for Ford. I'm not trying to sort of justify it or unjustify it. I'm just sort of putting my own perspective on it, saying that I think it's probably not realistic that Ford is going to give us a V8 Bronco. My source a long time ago told me that it wouldn't fit, that they designed the vehicle from the ground up to have a V6 EcoBoost engine in there, and that's what's going to fit, and that's what we're going to get for the street version of this thing. And remember, the EcoBoost is probably going to be able to make a lot more power and torque than a V8 would anyhow. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a big thumbs up. My name is Eric. See you in the next one.